Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform 101 podcast. My name is Rory Neary. I'm a Power Platform solution architect and trainer, and I am thrilled to be joined today by JukkaNiiranen. Jukka is a Power Platform solution architect, but as you'll find out later on, he's probably a much more he's a better one than I am, to be fair. And I feel like he really is. Yeah, we're all different. I'm a bit of a fanboy of Jukka. I think I see all of his posts, and I think I comment on all of his posts. I find them really entertaining. He's it's probably fair to say you're big on LinkedIn, but Jukka, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Yes, and so where I normally start this podcast is with the how we met thing, and we had a chat before the podcast, and we don't think we've actually met in person, although it's almost certain that we have been at the same conference at the same time, but probably in different rooms. But certainly I've I call it known in an online sense Jukka for quite some time, as probably many people have, because he's big on LinkedIn. I don't know about you, Jukka, but now I'm primarily LinkedIn as from a social media point of view. I kind of moved away from Twitter a few years ago, and that's where that's where I spend my life, if you like.
Yeah, I also used to be a Twitter buff. I met so many of the people already before becoming MVP who were like users of dynamic CRM across the globe, and like I found the Twitter to be, and the hashtags that you could follow there was sort of like the entry point into the world. But that was really interesting, the kind of first true sort of social media for people that you didn't know, and that was wonderful. LinkedIn isn't quite the same, but it's still today probably the best suitable platform for these kind of discussions that can take place there. Sort of professional, but also about the community. So I try to, if you ever see my post on LinkedIn, they are maybe not the typical style or tone of voice. I try to be kind of like a bit more like it used to be on Twitter, so not very serious at all, and trying to post memes there and sort of bring out the other side of things. And like also, like I always love to talk about things that also don't work, things that do work and don't work. I think that's sort of when you work as a solution architect, then you have to kind of know both sides of it. And I've gained so much value from people who have like shared also the sort of gotchas and like things that have sort of bit them before. And as a result, I kind of also want to approach them head on and like try not to be a fanboy of anything, but rather a passionate member of the community who likes to talk about whatever he discovers and share it online, and then see what others have to say about that.
Yeah, and I think that's what gives your posts authenticity. And please, everyone, follow Jukka on LinkedIn, and we'll pop his details into the show notes. But yeah, your posts have a lot of authenticity because I guess you're not really afraid to say that things are broken, and I think that your posts are also quite nuanced in terms of they get into the detail. I know you've got your own platform as well in terms of where you post your blog posts as well, and I seem to recall that I'm not saying there's a paywall, but there's an entry point into your blog posts, and I'm not sure if part of your rationale for that is that you don't want AI bots crawling all over your posts and then pumping it out as their knowledge at some point in the future.
Yeah. So today, actually, I write weekly on my newsletter called Perspectives on Power Platform, and that really is hosted on a dedicated newsletter platform called B5, which is really sort of designed to support that kind of thing. I used to be doing traditional WordPress blogging for well over a decade, and so at some point then, roughly, a bit over a year ago, I then decided that, okay, I want to try something else. I was also kind of already seeing that at that point that the sort of what AI is doing to this not just the content business, but kind of like the sort of incentives for people to post content. It is changing many things that we sort of took for granted for almost a couple of decades. I mean, right from the start of the sort of social web and all that. And I decided to then kind of try a different kind of a tool. And then after doing it for half a year, I then decided, okay, I didn't have first any regular cadence for posting. I tried it, okay, how does this feel to like do a newsletter rather than a traditional blog posts every now and then? And so there was traction, and I felt sort of kind of re-motivated to write again thanks to that tool. And so at around November, December last year, I then decided, okay, I'm going to launch a paid version of it and commit to doing a weekly post for those who are plus subscribers to that newsletter. And I keep sharing stuff probably once or twice a month for all readers. So it's never, the intention is not to be just paywall content, but there's the sort of kind of the experiment going on there about what's going to be like the future, sort of like the model after blogging sort of is, it's not dying, but it's really challenged by what's happening there with the platform models. And kind of especially now that I'm no longer in the Microsoft MVP program, so there's no sort of a pressure for me to do then kind of pure community contributions that are available to all readers all the time. That of course used to be a sort of the arrangement there that I give stuff away for free to the community, and in exchange I get a badge and a sticker and access to some events and all that. And there was lots of upsides to that. And but then when I sort of left that program, then it also gave me a chance to like reconsider a bit that, okay, what are the reasons and right ways for me to go about this thing. And so I'd say that that experiment is still ongoing. I don't yet know if that's what I'm going to be doing like 5 years out or even 1 year out. But I've kind of felt a bit more empowered by the fact that I can do something other than just doing the same blogging that I used to do for 15 years already in the traditional format.
And so we are both ex-MVPs. I don't know if this is some kind of therapy session for both of us. It's been 5 years since I last blogged or something. And so it sounds like you feel different about content creation now to how you felt when you were inside the MVP program. And maybe within that in mind, I can see there's quite a few awards at the top there. How many years were you within the program?
I was there for 11 years, so I got the first award in 2013, and things were still called Dynamic CRM back in those days when I got the award, and was with the category that also had a different name there, and there was no such an Adela signatures or whatever on those, so a very different time. But so I kind of saw a bit of the evolution of not just the program, but also then Microsoft around it. And it was a very rewarding journey that I kind of have no regrets for being in that program. But then at some point I knew that, okay, if I just keep on doing this, then I will get more of the same. And I realized that there are then kind of like, there's always going to be the feeling that I should be doing more, should be kind of like trying to hold on to a threshold and do more than before, get to know new products, and sort of like then I felt that it was almost like having a second job in a way. You have certain metrics there and KPIs, and you have then sort of a role there, of course nothing official, but then when it's so close to the work that you do for customers, then separating those things became really, really tough. Having how do you then draw the line between what's your hobby and what is your work? Well, it's always been tough for me. It still is tough, but at least now I have one less party to sort of like think about that. Am I sort of serving all the people around me who I have some, let's say, not obligations, but still sort of like expectations from, I guess I would say.
Sure. And to be fair, 11 years in the program, probably plus a bit, is plenty of time, and life changes in that period of time as well. And I guess, from the point of view of the listeners, many of them will be at an earlier point in their journey. And it's important to understand that your life will change, and I guess for all of us, there will probably come a point in time at which Power Platform may not be. I guess at some point people retire, and then all their Power Platform knowledge will disappear. But probably not for quite a long time for many of us. But it is important from a career point of view to be able to travel within it and understand that you have, I don't know, if you're on a train, you've got exit points and so on, and it's not always obvious to see them at the time. So let us roll back the clock then. So interestingly, you mentioned that you've been in the MVP program 11 years, and it's 2025 now, and I don't know, Power Platform probably got its name in about 2018. I'm guessing is roughly the time, but you were doing your thing and recognized for it, way back in 2014. So can you you can go from as far back as you like, really, but can you tell us, how did you get into Power Platform?
Yeah, so if I kind of really go back, what's sort of my professional origin story. So first of all, even though I today work with kind of a very techy topics, I don't have any technical or IT education. So I came from the business side. I studied international business and marketing, and the kind of first job roles that I had were actually in CRM, but not the technology side, but rather the actual processes on the customer side. So doing direct marketing and customer relationship management and all that kind of stuff. So that was where I was sort of the on the customer side end user who was using these tools, not deploying them for others.
And then obviously this concept of CRM kind of comes up a reasonable amount. And so CRM is customer relationship management. But it's not necessarily a Microsoft thing. It is just, there are many organizations that have products that do customer relationship management. But presumably in your case, you landed on the Microsoft product set.
Yeah, and that was actually like very early on in Microsoft's offering. So they arrived they made a international version of it in 2005 at the end of that year, so 20 years ago. Yeah. And I happened to be at a company at that point in time, or actual organization, sort of a non-profit or ish kind of company that was doing trading and supporting local businesses. And we were looking for a new CRM system to sort of support our direct marketing campaigns and managing membership data it was a chamber of commerce, so we had lots of like data about organizations that we needed to manage. We needed to send out bills to them, need to give out advice, so sort of like customer service scenarios there. And we needed the software that was going to be better than the old IBM Lotus Notes-based systems that were being put together to support that process. And it was almost a coin toss that we ended up with Microsoft CRM then back at that time. And funny enough, I was at that time sort of the sort of IT specialist / manager there, but also doing marketing stuff still on the business side as well. And we were evaluating those solutions that were out there. And as mentioned, being a chamber of commerce, having memberships, it was sort of a specific vertical, and there were solutions that were tailored for it. And originally we kind of decided, okay, we'll go for one of these established players in that market, small, but still like something that was built for, they had a module for things that we were looking for. But then when we realized that, okay, all the requirements that we then had in addition to that, what we wanted to do with the software, especially on the marketing side, and like how to work with data. So we learned that actually adding those would be very costly versus than if we went with the Microsoft CRM and the partner that was there to help us build it and customize it, configure it. So it turned out to be a cheaper project to build it on top of a very new Microsoft product at that point in time.
So I'll ask you a question in my ignorance, right? So you're working in Microsoft CRM. Now, many people will be familiar with Dataverse, and if they want a table, they create a table, new column, etc., etc. And people may or may not know the journey that, is this the same thing we're talking about? There's an evolution of CRM that moves, that evolves into Dynamics, that then evolves into Power Platform.
Yeah, that is sort of the beautiful story there, because so 20 years ago, roughly, when we were seeing the first demos of what was then CRM 3.0 and then later Dynamics CRM 3.0, so I saw at the vendor's office how there was at that point in time already there was a UI where you could click your mouse on a thing and create a new database table there. And that was like really kind of the biggest wow moment for me, because I didn't have any coding background. I still don't know how to really write code, but I thought, okay, you can actually extend and customize the data model just with a graphical UI. And the fun thing is that, I mean, if you created the custom table there in that time, it was of course on-prem times, it was your own server, but if you migrate that to Microsoft Online Cloud today, then the same table will still be there. So it's all started from there. It would be supported, like keep on customizing your data model there and taking it to the cloud, taking it to Dynamics 365, then Dataverse, building Canvas apps on top of it, and it could still be working. I mean, you didn't have to jump to another ship. And that to me is really kind of, it's the biggest kind of like sort of the benefits of the ecosystem, and also Microsoft's kind of dedication for upgrading software from one version to another, not leaving the software behind, not leaving the customers behind. They have an amazing track record there, starting with Windows and all those things where you can actually always go to the newer version. So the same thing applies also to the business applications side. And I think that's quite a unique sort of or it's a testament of like why the ecosystem is so solid, why it's a safe choice for you to build on top of it.
And I think that, if we think of, the audience for this, if you're thinking, should I invest time in developing Power Platform skills, then one argument would be, well, look, things that existed 20 years ago can now exist in a similar fashion now. I suspect the counter argument to that would be the whole AI story that we have now, that, I have seen things on the web where apps have been described as being almost throwaway things that you can just literally, build for that specific thing. I don't know. It could be that, clearly, if you've got a genuine scenario that repeats frequently enough, it makes absolute sense to make something that is going to live on. But it could be that you've got some very, very specific app that you need, I don't know, for an event. And then once that event's gone, you don't care about it. That is, I guess, it's scary in a way to think that the technical world could end up going in that direction.
Yeah, but if I think back a bit around when Power Apps, Canvas apps were launched, and like sort of already like a bit before they merged with the Dynamics story, and like the teams became one, and before the Power Platform term was invented, I do recall being at that time I was kind of in a kind of a tech lead role at one company, and trying to figure out that, okay, where should we be investing, what kind of offering could emerge from this tooling. And at that point, already like 2017, I was promoting the idea of these throwaway applications based on Canvas apps, because I kind of see that comparing that with the line of business applications, CRMs and all those, which are like the very foundation of what companies do, they have to exist from 1 year or decade to another, and you don't throw them away ever, you just evolve them. But then in addition to that, Canvas apps having the ability to connect to the data that's elsewhere.
Yeah.
I saw that, this creation story also was a bit like building a PowerPoint. And so that got me thinking that, okay, what's really the difference between a PowerPoint document and a Canvas app? In reality, the differences aren't that great. I mean, sure, technically it's a different thing, but if you look at it from the perspective of like, what do people see on their screens? Then I kind of started thinking that, why wouldn't every PowerPoint or document be an app in the future? And now we didn't maybe get into that direction, but when we have these co-pilots and AIs, they're next to all the documents all the time, kind of modifying them and generating them and all that, then we are these artifacts, these documents are becoming more alive than they used to be. They used to be files, but now they are something a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, and it's certainly hard to, I don't know, be a futurologist and know what the future is going to look like. I think one thing...
I love to do that.
One thing that amuses me, though, and this isn't a Power Platform point, but like Excel, right? Excel, and apologies if anyone is really into Excel here, and I was an accountant, so I used to use Excel all the time. Excel is rows and columns. And it was in rows and columns in 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020. In its most simplistic form, it's rows and columns and tabs and some formulas. But it has done made a good living out of being rows and columns for a long, long time. And it makes you wonder whether... will Excel be around here in 20 years' time? And will apps be around here in 20 years' time? Or in the same way, maybe you don't even need apps. I suspect we will. In fact, we definitely will, won't we? We'll have phones, won't we? And we'll need designers and I think we're probably a little bit further away from it than the AI hype would lead us to believe.
Yeah, we had apps before we called them apps. They were programs that you run on your PC and whatever, and we had smartphones even before iPhone that were able to install software. It was really rough. It was not fun and fluid like it is today. So it's not something that I can't really see a reason for that kind of a concept to just vanish overnight and be replaced with something that is just AI, because ultimately, if we look at what the Canvas apps and flows and agents are doing, they are connecting to systems that have not just the data but also the rules and the context. So there's been lots of Microsoft has been promoting this idea of co-pilot UI for AI, but I don't think they have invented the UI yet at all, and I've seen kind of some changes in that direction of the story as well in the more recent materials for Microsoft partners, because I see kind of now the app making a comeback there into that big picture. So you have the agents, and then you have the apps that set the context, that are sort of like what are you working on, and those are sort of described as the canvases where humans interact with them. And then there are those invisible agents behind there that are doing the work based on those models, and then their interfaces like Copilot, which then can sort of also be using the app like you as a human are using the app. But if we just if we were just was only made of pieces of data that is not structured, that is not similar, that is not surrounded by anything, that no containers that give meaning to it, then would there be, I don't know what kind of a world for computing that would be even. Probably
a very confusing world, I would think. Even in a
disorganized.
Yeah. So we're still quite far in the past. So in terms of your journey into Power Platform, but you started off with in Microsoft CRM, and then just roll the clock forward to 2025 when Jukka is now a Power Platform solution architect and posting lots of things.
Yes, as mentioned, I was working on the customer side, and I then continued towards working in bigger organizations that were rolling out Dynamics CRM globally. And then in 2010, I went to work as a consultant and external consultant, and helping companies to actually, that was the moment when the CRM online, so the cloud offering was starting to become available again. So that was like 5 years from when the sort of packaged software arrived that you could install in your server that came to the market. And then 5 years from that, we got a way to provision the same thing in the cloud. So click a button and generate a equivalent of what the CRM server was doing for you. We could have it there without any server inside. So then I was, of course, I can always saw the benefit of cloud really being the kind of the way that it removes the need for all those middlemen there for a business user to get to using a system. Because I was never the person who was, sometimes I had to install servers, but I didn't enjoy it. It was something I would rather want to avoid if I can, and now I could, because stuff was just available via browser as resources from the cloud. And so that was kind of a big transformation for IT consulting companies that were kind of more aligned around the model of we come in, we define what you want to build, and then we install servers, and then we write some code and deploy it to you, and then we sort of own the system. All the while, the world is moving towards a place where those customers can start directly from the cloud, and on day one there is something already. You don't have to wait for half a year to see the first prototype of a system, but rather you can start from an existing application and then think, okay, what should I add here, remove here, connect with this thing. And that was, so for many years I was then kind of the advocating the kind of agility that this new the model then enabled, challenging then again these more established players, those bigger consulting companies, and those people who were sort of like the traditional IT experts. I was the guy who didn't know much about that, but I was sort of confident about the fact that the world is going to change, and I did as much change with those tools as I could.
And I think that's, kind of coming back to our audience, I think that you do end up at some point having to work out which technological horse you'd like to back, because there was a time when you could know an awful lot about Power Platform, and I'm going to use it in the kind of the wider Power Platform being Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. But now I think we're in, you can't really be a know-it-all, because each of the products is pretty deep. So I guess from the point of view of the audience, then you've got to then think about which bit of Power Platform do you most like. And there's plenty of examples of people who really get stuck into Automate, such as Damien Bird and Peter Finstra, Paul Morano. But there are also people, I had Michael Roth, as you know, on the podcast recently, and he just decided, do you know what? He was really into the Power Platform administration side of things. And every time I say it sounds boring, but I know how unbelievably important it is. And so I think that people new to Power Platform, even though they're kind of getting stuck into different areas, they will at some point probably need to start thinking, well, I'm going to do more of this. I'm going to do more of, I know. And there's certainly, I was chatting to Ben Fetters, and he said he didn't really use model-driven apps. And I love model-driven apps, but they weren't my start points. And it is fascinating to think that some people that you think, wow, they know loads about Power Platform, and they do, but they also still have they have a piece of the cake and not necessarily all of it. But it's not a problem. I think that, it's just a question of do you want to go wide and to a small level of depth, or thin and go really deep into it. And a lot of that is just based on your personal preferences. What do you get into?
It is, yeah. I mean, there's this concept of the T-shaped professional where you sort of have a broad understanding of things around you, but then you focus on some area still. And I think that describes very well the situation when you are working in an ecosystem like Microsoft's cloud, where there's so many surrounding tools that you will encounter, and you need to understand that, okay, when is something that you are building, when should it be done with something else, or when is this particular sort of function or activity more suited for reporting rather than application, for example. So that kind of understanding is that is a bit of an architectural perspective to it already. So it's not many people who are very good at, for example, creating Canvas app, they might not really understand, okay, when should I suggest that let's not do this as a Canvas app at all. They may try, and then they will recreate something that could have been a model-driven application or Power BI sites or Power BI report. And so that's why it's important to have that the team has a mixture of this expertise there, so that you have a chance to hear from the other side of the platform perspectives on that, that how would they solve it, or what do they consider easy, what do they consider difficult, because there might be very different sides to it.
But I actually think that Microsoft have done a really good job of making products that are different to each other in terms of Power Platform, but that also complement each other. And you've given, clearly a Canvas app can do the same thing as model-driven apps, but there's also a time and a place for them. However, Power apps don't really do automations. Once you get deep into automations, they don't really do that. They're, yes, you'll click a button and it might do a few things, but really you shouldn't have that many actions on a Canvas app button. Whereas you could conceivably have quite a lot of actions as a result of something happening in Power Automate. So I am conscious of time, and I'm also conscious that we're in about 2015. So do you want to give us a kind of lightning tour of how you get from where you were 2015 all the way to 25?
Sure thing.
That's the problem with having been around for so long.
Exactly. I could spend hours here just describe what I've been up to. But so after being sort of the CRM cloud consultant, I realized, as I was mentioning about the arrival of Power Apps Canvas apps there at one point, and the idea of these sort of disposable applications. So I realized that there's going to be a need for different kinds of consultants who are not really just building the big line of business applications or dynamic systems that are meant to be sort of a bit rigid and stable and all that. So I saw that this low-code thing that was not really something totally technologically new, but it was a new kind of a way to approach these tools with a different mindset, that you are not building a big system that has been sort of ordered by a stakeholder in the customer side who is funding it and building a project team around it, but rather that anyone in the organization could actually start building applications for their needs. And sort of saw the bottom-up movement needed something that they would not be served by these same people who were building those big Dynamics applications. Technically, they needed sort of the understanding there, but you had to look at it differently. And so then in 2020, me and a few friends of mine who had been in the Microsoft business for a while as well, we started then decided that we'll start a company that's 100% focused on Power Platform in 2020. And that was really a leap of faith, because there was no one really else doing it at that time. Yet people were just trying to integrate Power Apps into their Dynamics or SharePoint practice and all that. And we said, okay, but hey, this is our focus area, and let's see what happens there. And so that was a very interesting and rewarding journey. Spent 4 years in that company, not there anymore. It still exists, and it's it's been growing well. So that gave me the opportunity to like remove the zero half from my head that I'd been wearing for so many years, and then still sort of like approach it, talk to different people in the organization. And I got to a lot of discussions with the representatives of IT from the customer organization side. And I ended up being a bit of a kind of the same path as Michael took towards the governance side of administration. So realizing, okay, what actually is now needed so that if the platform makes it possible for anyone to create these apps and automations, then how do we ensure that it's not going to be chaos? And that's sort of the big sort of realizing that before there's going to be bigger commitment and investment into building loads of apps and automations, there needs to be some guardrails there. The companies, the organizations, the customers, they need to have sort of a green light for things to be built in a new way, so that they can sort of rise from the sort of the individual applications into being team apps and then the primary apps, and like becoming those the big apps that they sort of some of them deserve to be.
And that whole idea, there's been some really interesting changes in mindset, and there's this journey that is, I'd say, not repeatable in the sense of you've been there from before the day when they called it Power Platform right through to today. And I think it's helped the likes of me because I wasn't, I'm an ex-accountant. So for me, as we went through the different stages, which included times when we called people that were making things in Power Platform, people called them citizen developers. But now, then that kind of went out of fashion as a term. I have seen it more recently, but generally makers or developers seems to be the term. But it's been an interesting journey, but also I think the hardest journey that any customer or client goes on is that idea of, okay, you've got a massive amount of flexibility now, and you often get a scenario where the client then behaves like they're in a sweet shop, and they'll go, can I have a drop down like this? And then they'll have a few sweets and so on. And then their eyes will light up, can we have this over here? But actually, although it is a flexible platform and the answer is often yes to the things that they say, it is also often better to have thought about it at the start. But the problem is that from the point of view of the person specifying the thing, they don't know how to specify it because they don't know what things look like. So they're in that. But I think that it is interesting, and for the benefit of the listeners, that is something that happens a lot. The people specifying the apps, and there's nothing wrong with them at all. These people need the apps. Don't know the right way of specifying. They don't know the right words. They don't, they might call a report an app, for example. Or they may not even ask for a report. That is a classic. You do the whole thing, you go, oh, can I have that in Excel? Do you know what I mean? Or can I have the report on this? It's like, you didn't ask for a report. There's nothing in this that says you wanted a report, but now you want a report. But actually, it is interesting because then, had they asked for a report, the conversation might have played out differently, and even the data model that you then made to do all the stuff might be different. So it definitely raises some really interesting questions. If you are new to Power Platform, just be mindful that these things will happen, and that probably will manifest itself in terms of people coming back to you and saying, that screen is not the screen I wanted, even though it's the screen I asked for.
Yeah, it's so important to sort of have be able to ask why. I mean, challenging the requirements in a sort of a friendly and constructive way, not like just sticking to the fact that can this be done, because usually answer is yes, but should it be done, the usually answer is no. And that's where it's particularly for people who don't have yet that much experience maybe on how do you then start challenging people who might be very senior in the organization, who you need to sort of serve them and like deliver to them what they want, sort of keep them happy, but you always have to keep in mind that they need to be happy about the end result, not about the actual app details and like what happens in between that. And it's kind of the more sort of experience you gain, the more you're expected to like say something if you see things that don't make sense. So that's something people should be practicing and having the courage to also then challenge those people who might appear more senior but who may not then understand, for example, the new toolkits in a way that the sort of more junior ones do, who may be exposed to like the new and better ways to do things. Some might be just old people who like done the things the same kind of systems like 10 years ago, and they keep on rebuilding it, but they don't consider the fact that maybe we don't like need to go through all those hoops, and there could be something that's not as rigid and not as sort of well specified, but rather might make sense that you put a sort of a rough example of could this be it, but you don't like build the whole thing first, but you make sure that you get to validate those ideas before you invest in building all the logic and security and all those things around it, because that's time the UI is the simple part.
And I think that when I started to get into the agile approach to software development, and agile is actually it's a known method for building software. We don't have time to get into all of the features of it, but one feature of it is that you create user stories that reflect what it is you're trying to achieve. And actually without them, it can be a lot more difficult than you might think, because there is this inbuilt assumption that everyone understands what everyone else thinks. And actually, it's very often not the case. But for the benefit of the listeners, a user story is something that describes what you're trying to achieve, tends to be non-technical. It does it from the perspective of one of the stakeholders, tends to say what the benefit is, but at some point they're going to come across user stories, and I want them to have that light bulb moment where they think, user stories, now these are important. I don't know what they are, but to me, I feel like they are your North Star or North Stars for when you're building something, because quite often you're not in the room with the client at all times, but you could be in the room with the user stories where you can go, no, we thought about this, we looked at our user stories, we decided that this was not a good thing in this context. So it can be really helpful to and of course, in the absence of user stories, there is that element of that whole sweet shop scenario of like, you never asked them what their objective was, so they just said, can we have this and can we have that, and in the end you get, I don't know, one of those Tesla trucks maybe. Yeah,
you don't get like it. You need to have a way to prioritize what you are doing, and a good way to like see that what are the bare essentials is to like have the stories there that you see that okay, for this to be possible, we need to build something before that, or then after it. And like those are the sort of the critical path that you have to build there, and everything else is just nice to have if it doesn't really sort of affect that the main path that has to be walked on.
So I'm going to bring this journey to 2025 to an end, I feel. And you are now working in a consultancy capacity, and you engage with companies on that basis, I guess probably at a fairly high level.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of both. I do lots of small advisory work for companies that may need specific guidance on architecture or governance or licensing. That's my specialty area, which I love to talk about. So what is the cost of building things? What elements are there? Yeah. So that's one kind of a area that's very non-technical, but it's something people are often afraid to talk about. But I've seen it always as a great challenge. It's so very puzzle that it never ends. You always have more pieces moving there, and like I like constructing that. So it's something which I provide help in, but then I build apps and automations reports for people as well. So I mean, I've been now working as a solopreneur for a bit over a year, and sort of giving myself the freedom to then like not be in sort of locked into longer engagements necessarily, but being able to like see also the needs from people sort of outside that sort of the low code governance path where I was spent probably the last 3 or 4 years before this, pretty much focused on the kind of think about how bigger organization can enable citizen development and all those things. But I also want to make things. I'm sort of a similar kind of a person as any other kind of people who get excited about Power Apps or whatever. So I want to be hands-on as well. I don't want to be just spreading PowerPoints. PowerPoints are great. They are needed. I like to draw things, but I don't want to just be talking in workshops. I need to also occasionally build something with my own hands. Or my mouse.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let us move on to the more structured part of this chat that we're having. And this is the something old, something new section. So it's something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And then I also give you an opportunity to talk about something that you have done that you are particularly proud of. And you get to pick one. You can do a 3-2-1, but if I can start off with something old in Power Platform that you think that is still cool and maybe doesn't get enough airtime. You could dust this one off. Maybe we use it all the time.
Yeah, so actually just today I was looking for a way to get to the classic advanced find in modern applications. And that feature was there already 20 years ago. It was one of those really cool features that show you like how to then build. Because I was working in marketing and target group creation roles as well. And to be able to like specify criteria, find me contacts who have these orders, for example, and who have these related records in other tables. And like still today, advanced find the UI, which has no limitations about what it can access. It's got you can grab any relationship in Dataverse with it. No app limitation, all that. I think that is still. It's if I need to do something like really dig into data, I want to get the classic advanced find.
Okay, and I will dig into that a little bit, right? So, say for example you're working in a Canvas app. You tend to be able to jump up one level. So you can kind of go, I'm in this record. Okay, there's a parent record. It could be like a lookup column. And then you'll want to see some details relating to that lookup column. But you can only do one jump. You can't then jump from the parent to the parent of the parent. Are you suggesting with Advanced Find that you can they can be more really significant than that? And
broad. So, I mean, the limitations usually with those relationships are on the UI level. So things you can construct in Canvas or, I mean, we have Power Effects or then in modern applications like Views, then those have limitations. But if you have criteria, like show me context, and you don't have to like bring data from too far in the relationship, but you have to like have criteria that something needs to exist or not exist. There are some values there. So segmentation scenarios, which I used to spend my time on working with CRM tools, then it's still an amazing tool for it.
Cool. Okay, so that was something old. So you've gone for classic advanced find, and then from the benefit of the users and perhaps myself, how would you get to? I'm guessing you're sitting in a model-driven app, and you're thinking, I could really do with. I can see 100,000 records here, but I really need to get to the 9 that are actually useful. What's your point and click, and what would you be clicking on to get to advanced find?
Yeah, so today you probably have to go via the cog there and get to the classic UI unless you have stored the URL there. So direct links still work, but there's this awesome community tool called LevelUp for Dynamics 365 for Power Platforms. So it's in Chrome and Edge, and it has this. Today there's actually a very new UI of it, a version of it released.
Yeah.
So it has shortcuts into these things that allow you to, for example, pin the advanced find button into that sidebar in your Edge or Chrome browser and have it also available there. Yeah. So I'd recommend people to look up that extension. It's very reliable. It's even if you sort of are scared about add-ons, then LevelUp has been there for for many years, and it's totally...
And it's called LevelUp for Dynamics 365.
Yeah, I think that's...
and I have used it before.
Yeah. Everybody should have that, if you are allowed to install add-ons or extensions in your browser.
Sure. So that's something old, something new. So something new in Power Platform. It doesn't have to be that new, just newish.
Well, this is really new because we talked about how AI is now sort of challenging the way how apps are built, and the generative pages feature which is kind of now in modern applications, but it is sort of you build a thing that looks like a Canvas app with it.
Yeah.
But it's basically vibe coding a UI for tables in Dataverse. So it's only in the US environments now available for preview, but you can basically get sort of an experience that is similar to if you ask like Cursor or Lovable or all these kind of like AI dev creation tools to like build you an application, then that will actually build you a React application. There's going to be lots of code that you see there, but you don't touch the code yourself. Which is good because I don't know at all what TypeScript or React or whatever that's not my thing. But there's now a way to like prompt the AI to do the coding for you. It's going to be similar to a Canvas app. It's not editable directly, the code yet, and it's very early days, but I think that it's going to be pretty crucial for the kind of next couple of years of Power Platform, how we're going to be positioned, what are apps going to be seen as part of this sort of brave new world.
And digging into that, I'm conscious of time, but I'm really enjoying this. So digging into that, just remind me of what are we calling this? I know there's a
generative pages is probably the feature there. So when you go to a modeling application, the app editor, and then you create a new page, one of the options there is generative page. And that's when you get to that chatbot UI.
And then, say for example, you want an app and it does some particular thing and it needs a table. Is that a part of what it does? Or will it only kind of make use of tables that already exist?
Yeah, so today it only uses, you can reference up to 6 Dataverse tables there. So it's a limited preview, and you shouldn't be building any real apps with it today, but you should be, if you have a US environment, then go and look at that option is going to exist alongside all the other stuff. It's not going to directly tomorrow replace everything that we have, but I believe that the combination of a structured platform like Dataverse, security models, databases, with this new UI, then again, there might be a place where Microsoft actually has a good upper hand compared to some of the pure vibe coding tools. And so,
should we be thinking of this in the same way as we think of, okay, I want to build an app. Is it a model-driven app? Am I building a customer page? Am I building a Canvas app? Is it that? Are we in at that kind of level? Hit the drop down. Create new apps. Generative page.
Well, honestly, today I don't think even Microsoft knows what's going to be. It's now done because LLMs can do it, and they are using not even all the UI elements are same as you have in Canvas because there's more training data for things that are not from Microsoft. So it's more really about like it's going to turn into something, but it's hard to say yet how fast can it mature, because now we are sort of at the level there which Power Apps was 10 years ago, like the first previews of what Canvas apps were. We're at that moment now with these.
But as we've already seen with it feels like the pace of change has gone up and not down with this new world of AI. We were progressing with Canvas apps and so on, and then AI came along and like the world changed.
Yeah, but the good thing is that we had a few years when the platform got to become more mature for enterprise scenarios, and it's a great foundation now if Microsoft plays the cards right and like finds a way to like sort of not replace good things with generated stuff, but rather combine them in a smart way. Put them in like boxes where the AI can do its stuff without breaking things.
Okay, so something old, something new, something borrowed?
Yeah, so just a few days ago I was looking at this great new product, or like a licensing management solution called JanusGuard, and that's built specifically for applications built in or products built on top of Power Platform. So you can build licensing enforcement for your Canvas apps or model-driven applications or flows or PCFs or plugins. And so it's a kind of a SaaS service that gives you the sort of licensing management and enforcement mechanisms for anything that you want to commercialize on the platform. It's built by Florian Kröner, who's been with the platform for a long time, and he for example, he developed the Power Kanban PCF control that many probably tried out, which is a lot better than what the Microsoft's own Kanban board was. It's no longer open source, but it's example of like him being very deep.
So how do you spell that then? It's called JanusGuard, is it?
So IANUS and guard, Janus. I'll give you the links there, and you can get them in the show.
I'll make sure I put those links in there as well.
So if you ever have like an idea of building products on top of these things, and Microsoft doesn't really provide licensing mechanisms for it for you, but this could be a great way to like people who want to innovate on top of our platform.
Cool. So, and then we probably could have dedicated an hour to this next one, but something blue. So this is something in Power Platform. You can have fun with this. That you think, I just wish this could be better. And then and this could be those trivial things that, you know, box is not the right size, you know, so you can't see what you're even writing. But are there some, what would there be in Power Platform you think, oh, please, just fix this?
So if I really think about what's been recently kind of a negative turn is the kind of, because Microsoft is a US-based company, and how the US clouds are now then sort of becoming less trusted because of the kind of politics around the current administration. So that has been a really, it's made me blue many times, because I've kind of like, I've always sort of believed that it's so much better to like build on these common clouds rather than trying to sort of put up your own servers and like have things locally run. And it's kind of like the only way to really do these things. There's not going to be an on-prem version of Power Platform ever again. Yeah. And now if that's going to become a limitation that we need to like spend time on like thinking about other options if there's going to be issues with like not just data residency, but like can we expose some customer data into these, anything that can be accessed by the government that Microsoft is sort of under. So that has been it's a big role theme, of course, but it's kind of the first time when I felt that, okay, this like a big blow to that cloud journey and like the citizen development journey that I've been on. And now we maybe have to like think about, okay, is this going to be forever like this? Is it always going to be possible? So that was kind of a broad thing, not platform specific, but something that does kind of, you can't really ignore it today. There are, I mean, IT is not sort of separate from politics, and we've seen it this year, particularly now, unfortunately, very in a concrete way, discussions in Europe that are pretty much well founded on the understanding that there's now certain threat that things could go the wrong way. Yeah. Well, that is true. Okay, so, and then in terms of, I always felt that when I did the something borrowed thing, I then didn't give the people an opportunity to say something that they were proud of having done themselves. So something that you've done, it could be anything really, it doesn't have to be tech, but something that you've done that you think, hey, people, go and have a look at this, it's cool. Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned about the licensing model or tools for products that you build on top of Power Platform. And I'm really proud about the thing that we, together with my business partner, Nuno Nogueira, we have built a SaaS product on top of our platform called FinModeler. And it's a tool that allows you to turn your business ideas into financial models that you can then export into Excel and work with dynamic formulas there. So we have an app where you enter your metrics about what your business is going to be like, how many employees you have, what kind of revenue streams, all that. Then it generates a professional business, a financial model from it. So Nuno is actually, he also has a financial background like you have. Actually, you Rory probably should go and check out the free trial that we have there. So FinModeler, FinModeler.com is the place where you can see the application. And that's been an interesting journey, building a product as a canvas app, which is not something that Microsoft really makes easy, but we've done it.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. And that really takes us to the end of the well, it's not quite the end. So I like to finish off with the Desert Island discs, and I know you've dropped me out the details of your Desert Island disc, but do you want to just say, what music you'd want to take on this desert island with you, and then kind of why?
Yeah, so I picked up this particular CD, so it's Depeche Mode's album called Songs of Faith and Devotion from '93, and I was saying to Rory that actually any album by Depeche Mode would be a great selection for being on a desert island, but I think that era really captures the sort of the best of what Depeche Mode was doing there in their combination of rock and electric sounds, and like being having a sort of the, I don't know how to describe it, mentality that also is like a bit melancholic, and so it's very sort of aligned with the sort of the Finnish mentality. We are kind of like people who are not smiling that much. We are keeping things.
Well, you say that. But
you see people like Kimi Räikkönen, for example, who are not really smiling when they are won a Formula 1 race and are on the podium. They just are like, good, on to the next race. So that kind of a toned down way of being, that's
quietly happy.
Much more that resonates with Finns a lot, I've noticed.
That is cool. And I'm sure I saw somewhere that the Finnish people are the happiest people on earth.
Yes, we have scored high on that survey many times, but I guess the secret is that we are good at hiding our happiness. We don't make a fuss about it. Quietly happy people.
I mean, I trained people on Power Platform a couple of times over in Finland. It was absolutely lovely. I mean, I was in Helsinki, but Helsinki in UK terms is in line with Newcastle. But Helsinki is at one of the most southern points of Finland, and obviously you go right all the way up to the Arctic Circle, I expect.
Yeah, there's many different sort of variants of Finland, and Helsinki, of course, it doesn't represent maybe the traditional culture that much anymore. It's a melting pot for people from all around.
But I think that's what we're all finding now. If you go into your local town centre or local city centre, you're not going to see ethnic group, and it's going to be lots and lots of them.
Yeah.
So I do a bit of busking, and they think they're watching me. I'm watching them as well. You see, it is interesting sort of seeing the different people that go past in their different walks of life. But yeah, certainly the world is different, and it's interesting that somewhere as remote as I say it's remote. It's not that remote, but it is more remote than other parts of the world. Still is also experiencing those cultural changes.
Yeah, I think it's for the better. I mean, people are sort of open to the world in a way that wasn't really the case at all when I was growing up. Before there was internet or social media and all these channels, which all have their downside as well. But the fact that you can sort of like reach out to anyone anywhere, then it's a world where I kind of like I want to make the most of that opportunity, because I know it wasn't always like that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Have you got any other things that you want to say? Things that you left on the table, or to the audience? Any words of encouragement for new Power Platform users?
Well, I mean, it's. I still think that maybe despite of all the disruption coming from like the AI and even politics and all that, it's still looking at the track record of what has happened here. I started with this thing 20 years ago and just kept on doing it in a new way and going forward, and I never had to like look for anything else than to like the kind of new things that are here in this expanding platform. There's so much to cover, and you don't have to like get stuck doing the same thing for 10 years. You can benefit from knowing the fact that you did something like related work 10 years ago, and then you can like sort of understand the needs of that area, but you can totally move on and still remain in the same community, in the same scenes.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm going to finish off the podcast with the... and I'll play us out. So I'm going to play a little tune. It's always interesting playing a tune to a guy, because I then think, oh no, I better not do, I don't know, Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, because that would lead to a very weird moment. So I do have a good song for us, actually. And so I'm going to do Take Me Home Country Roads, John Denver, which is from a long, long time ago. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains.